I'm Marley.
I'm Maria.
And I'm Kendra.
Welcome to Cafe Hachidori.
Okie dokie. What are we drinking tonight?
I, once again, have some green tea. Traditional, Marley.
Sounds very soothing.
It does. I went for like a nice cup of like raspberry tea because it's still snowing and it's freezing here in Ohio.
I wouldn't understand.
It's
like 70.
Freezing.
And I have some nice hot apple cider. That's what it's called. Because it's snowing and it's freezing.
So today we're going to talk about the plot progression and the plot structure for Kimi no Na wa.
Well, I think it's definitely already a very long movie, but it's good for the length that it is, and I think if there wanted to be kind of some more details and other things that we wanted to find out about the characters, like we've already kind of discussed, that the movie would have to be even longer than it already is. But I think that for me, the one thing that was very weird about watching it is that in the beginning, there was just like absolutely no context to what was happening between the body switching and like that sort of a thing, and so I was extremely confused, but I did actually really kind of enjoy the way that kind of as the plot progresses and becomes a little bit more fast-paced as things going on, that you get to add like more bits of information in as it goes.
So I know for me, I really liked the way that the progression was. Rewatching the movie multiple times, I'm like, wow, I feel like something should have already happened. And I'm like, oh wait, we're only 15 minutes in, because there's actually a lot of information jam-packed in like every minute of this movie. And rewatching it, you kind of realize that. But the first time I watched it, I felt like, basically every time I've watched it, I feel like this movie is a like 4 or 5 hour film, but it's not, you know? It just has so much depth and information, and I'm just like, wow. And there's like no other way to explain it, because I remember that I really liked the interludes in between the like sections, because they are a nice little break, you know, like a moment for your mind to kind of just like
process the emotional pain that this movie puts you through.
Process is the best way. It's like, if I look at it in terms of it, basically I look at it, it's like 3 different movies, you know, because of where all interludes just take place. It's like an episodic journey, but it's just in one 2-hour film. So I thought I actually really did like the progression of it. It seems a little slow at first, and it's a little confusing at first, but everything comes, to me at least, when it should happen.
Yeah, and I think it does end up coming together really well.
I kind of wish that the movie was actually longer than it was.
I could definitely see that.
Just for the sake of like storytelling, I wish they had enough time to explain more about Taki and his friends around him and stuff. Like we discussed in an earlier episode, we had so little exposure of him as a person that it was kind of hard to relate to his feelings. So in that aspect, I wish it would take a little more time. But otherwise...
Agreed.
Otherwise the pacing was really well done. And I feel like the initial confusion in the movie it kind of matches the characters' emotions. So you as a first-time audience are figuring out the situation along with the characters. And I kind of appreciated that much. But yeah, I agree with Marley's note about this being like an episodic drama in a 2-hour span. Well, more like an hour and a half.
Yeah, and now that you say that, it would have been nicer that it was longer, considering how long it already felt because of how much detail is jam-packed in there. Having those aspects probably, I mean, yes, would have made the film longer in general, but I don't think it would have detracted from the overall pacing.
No, not at all. But I think it's also kind of one of those things that's interesting to consider is like, I don't know for me, but like when I saw Avatar, which I loved and I thought was a really great movie, that movie is very long, and I know for me, like the last 20 minutes or so, I was like, I'm getting kind of bored here.
Just to clarify, we're talking about the blue one, right?
Yes, not that garbage piece of crap that M. Night Shyamalan tried to shove down.
It doesn't exist!
Garbage.
It doesn't exist!
Absolute f***ing garbage.
I would have cut ties with you at that moment.
No, oh my god, no. I mean, the one with the blue people, that was actually a good movie. So I think that's always one of the things that's interesting to consider about the lengths of the movie is that, like, knowing your audience and knowing how it has to be presented as to whether or not, if this movie were an hour or an hour and a half longer, and then you're reaching the part where you have like a 4-hour movie, of how to kind of make that easily digestible for your audience without feeling like you're kind of having people sit there and having them just like cram all of this information into their brain that they just won't be able to process.
It also could have just been 15 more minutes, you know? 15 more minutes on Taki, and we could have gotten a lot of information for the amount that was jam-packed normally.
I was talking with my mother about this movie, and I liked her idea about this movie being told in like a drama episodic form rather than just shoving it into 1.5 hours. As you guys probably know, like, book to movie adaptations typically don't really work because we have so much information that's just shoved into that limited time span. And yeah, I would have liked to see this as like a anime series, or at least
a movie series.
Yeah, that could
I was about to say like a movie series or a sequel or something of that sort.
Or kind of like how they did with Sherlock, is that each of those episodes is almost like an hour and a half, but it's still like a TV series. And so if you listen to some of the director's commentary, they did it like a bunch of tiny movies.
It could have been like FLCL, because FLCL is only, few episodes long, so that's another, like, that's an anime that does fit that same kind of structure as Sherlock, which is only a few episodes long per season.
That's so good.
I found an interview with Shinkai, director, saying that he was trying to cater to the mainstream audience, which is why this was like such a different take on films for him. It's very unconventional for him to do such like a basic, typical body switch rom-com. So with that in mind, I don't think that an hour-long episode on a TV would really hit like the mainstream audience in Japan, because for mainstream anime to become popular in Japan, it typically has to be under 30 minutes.
So it could have been movies, kind of like the Madoka films, how like they took the entire anime and made 2 films out of it, and then they had the third film. It could have been something like that, you know, where they had 2 films and it was like, yes, a sequel kind of idea, but it's basically an episodic thing that just continues on.
Other than that, I think he did a great job with what he had to work with.
I want to like hit this guy because this movie just punched me in the feelings so hard. I was
Which means
on
he did a
my
great
floor.
job.
Oh, he did such a great job.
So you said more about structure, right, Maria? That there were some things about the structure of the film in general that you would have liked to be changed?
It kind of goes along with the length issue, but I feel like the ordering of the body swapping and the time travel probably could have been swapped in some places to better tell the story. For example, the flashback that Mitsuha went to Tokyo to see Taki, that whole scene. If you guys remember later in the movie, while Taki as Mitsuha is trying to save the village, that whole flashback scene is like interjected while he's running down the slope, and I just think that whole sequence could have been earlier than like the climax of the movie. I wish it would have happened somewhere before or after the sake trip, just because that made me like relate to Mitsuha better, see what she actually thought about him, why she cares about him so much. I just wanted that a little earlier on than like, oh, last minute exposure.
You know what I actually wish about that scene? I wish it was actually later. And you're gonna kill me about this, but I wish it was right after, like, the whole Twilight scene where, you know, when Taki wakes up on the mountain and he's like, why am I here? I wish it was like right before he woke up there and he like has no memory of it. And the reason for that is because at the very beginning of the entire film, the very first scene that we get is of the 2 of them in the train looking at each other, right? And that's the very last scene of the entire movie. So then at the very beginning, and then right after that we have the whole like part where Mitsuha's voice is like, Taki, do you remember me? Do you remember me? Like part, like we hear the audio of it, like almost immediately after that. And then if we actually saw that full scene towards the end, that would have been right after he woke up and had no memories of it. I think that would have been a lot more powerful and a lot sadder. But I do agree that where it is right now does feel a little out of place. I do agree, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually like that idea.
And that's only because of, like, mirroring, you know? They do so much of that in this film. I would have liked it just to be a little bit further away and not in the middle of when he's trying to save the entire town.
Rude.
I think it might have been even interesting if you could see that flashback.
Pieces of it earlier?
Well, not earlier would have been great too, but later, this is like gonna completely change the movie. But in the ending, when we see Taki as an adult looking for jobs, if that were in Mitsuha's perspective and what we were watching her finding jobs or walking to her company, we don't really know. If we were watching her perspective of Tokyo as an adult and we could go through that flashback scene and then we see that she catches a glimpse of Taki on the way to work or whatever, like, I feel that would have been really great.
That would have been also good, but the only issue with that is she wouldn't be able to remember that.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Because time travel rules, if you change things that happened in the past, it alters the future and everything is different.
But yeah, that would have made it real painful. That would have been really painful. And I think another reason why it stands out so weird where it is now is because when we get the flashback, we're Taki in Mitsuha's body, right? But it's the flashback, you're right, is from Mitsuha's perspective. So why is he remembering it from that perspective? What the...
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
And then, so the only reason that, like, I do agree that it definitely should happen probably after that or right after the sake trip, because that's when he's still seeing things from her perspective because he's already went through her memories beforehand. So those are probably the best places, right there or right before he wakes up again after the next day.
Yeah.
All the other body swap, like, things that I have read a few, this one would be on the top of that list, and the only other one that I can think of is Bitter Change. That's not the full title of that manga, but basically that one is about these two kids that end up switching bodies, and then it goes through, like, them being kids to them being middle schooler students to them being high school students, and it's very, very detailed on, like, their lives as well as, like, what it means to be in the opposite gender's body. So that one's more realistic. I really recommend that. But otherwise, typically when body swap shows or whatever happen, they tend to play on the trope of the situations that occur in those bodies more so than figuring out how to fix the situation that happened. But, like, in this one, it just happened. You know, just one day they woke up and everything was changed, and they never were really all too focused on stopping it. Yeah, this plot was a lot more focused on the world, you know? Not necessarily, hey, we're body swapping, more on this is the world that we live in, why don't we learn something from the bodies that we're in?
Exactly.
And I think that's a really good thing.
Exactly. Do more of these kinds of things with body swap episodes, people who have power.
Yeah. All right. I don't have anything else to say. You guys?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, the body swap thing I like for other reasons as well, but that's about it.
Time to wrap up.
If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe us.
Leave us some comments below and ask us questions.
We hope to see you again at Cafe Hachidori. See ya!
Bye!